Welcome to part 4 of Justin Baldoni's October 7th deposition. Gottlieb. Did there come a time in May of 2023 where you learned that Jenny Slate and Miss Lively had made concerns known regarding comments that you made on the set? In May of 2023, I believe yes. Yes. Who told you about Miss Slate and Miss Lively's concerns? Ange Giannetti, Alex Sachs. Separately or together? Separate conversations. With Miss Giannetti, was that a conversation in person? No. On the phone? Yes. How about Miss Sachs? Phone. Okay, what do you recall Miss Sachs telling you about Miss Slate's concerns? I recall her having lunch with Miss Slate and saying that Miss Slate, she listed a few things. She said Miss Slate had not appreciated the recording that I had made during pre-production with her and Miss Lively. She had not appreciated a comment that I had made on set regarding her wardrobe, something she was wearing. I believe she also said that Miss Slate didn't like that I was interacting with the fans outside. There was a lot of fans when we were shooting, and then on certain breaks, I would go and say hi to them because they were out there all day. And if I recall correctly, she was saying to Miss Sachs that she didn't want to be asked to go out and do that as well because she was a private person. So she was asking to not interact with, to be asked to interact with the fans. I don't know if it was Alex or Ange who told me that she had felt the set was too huggy or comfortable or whatever. I know huggy was a word that was used because I remember the word. That's the best of my recollection at the moment. So between Miss Sachs and Miss Giannetti, you were told that Miss Slate thought the set was too huggy, yes? You asked me about just Miss Sachs, so I was just answering for Miss Sachs. I thought you said you weren't sure if it was Miss Sachs or Miss Giannetti that said that. Oh no, I thought your original question was to recount what Miss Sachs told me. If I misheard that, that's fine. I thought you were breaking the two up. Did Miss Giannetti's description of Miss Slate's concerns differ in any material respect to you? Shapiro, objection. Justin, slightly. Gottlieb, in what way? I specifically recall, to further answer your question, it was a FaceTime with Miss Giannetti. Okay, it was not a phone call. So a FaceTime with Miss Giannetti, what do you recall that's different? What's different is that Miss Giannetti had told me that she had asked Miss Slate if she wanted to file a report, if she wanted to do something with it. That was not something that Alex had said anything about, to which Miss Slate said no. Miss Giannetti had also said on the call that when Miss Slate had said that I had commented on her wardrobe and used the word sexy, that Miss Giannetti asked if she felt it was sexual or if I was hitting on her, and she said no, it wasn't sexual. She just didn't appreciate it. That's how, in my recollection. Oh, and I believe it was from Miss Giannetti that I had heard that Miss Slate didn't appreciate the way that Jamie or Mr. Heath had offered to pay for her additional housing, as he was talking about the sanctity of motherhood. And I wasn't there, so I don't know, but she didn't like that, I guess. So before, when you were testifying about what Miss Sachs told you, you had mentioned a comment about a wardrobe. The comment about a wardrobe included the use of the word sexy, correct? And your testimony is that comment was about the wardrobe choice. I don't think that's what I said. Okay, we'll just get back to your description of that in just a moment. Am I correct that in response to receiving this information from Miss Sachs and Miss Giannetti, you sent a message to Miss Slate? Well, this was the first I had heard about it. Miss Slate had not come to me directly, and I felt terrible, and I wanted to apologize, but I also didn't want to burden her with that or make her uncomfortable, and I thought it would be best, based on the power dynamic and the awkwardness of it, to actually send it to Alex so that I didn't have to force her to accept my apology or something. So I was just trying to be respectful, and so yes, I sent Alex a message to send to Miss Slate. You didn't want to make Miss Slate uncomfortable by sending her a message directly? Yes. And that's because you understood that Miss Slate was already uncomfortable in certain respects. Shapiro, objection. Justin, well, I understood that since she had shared that she had not appreciated some of my behavior, as soon as I was aware of it, I didn't want to add to that in any way. So I wanted to send it to her so I didn't create any more discomfort. Gottlieb, any more discomfort? Shapiro, objection. Justin, yes, correct. Gottlieb, okay, and you were also informed about Miss Lively's discomfort as well, correct? Shapiro, objection. Justin, not from Alex Sachs. Gottlieb, from whom? Ange Giannetti. Let's bracket that and come back to it. Let's continue on Miss Slate for a moment. Okay. Gottlieb, I want to show you a document. This will be Exhibit 26. Exhibit 26 marked for identification. Gottlieb, Mr. Baldoni, you've been handed what's been marked as Exhibit 26. This is a document bearing the Bates numbers Baldoni 31947 through 31950. And this is a text exchange between you and Alex Sachs. Is that correct? It appears to be. The date is May 30th, 2023. Is that correct? May 30th, 2023? Yes. Okay, and do you see at the bottom of page 31948 at 9:46 p.m., you asked Miss Sachs if you can send your notes to Jenny and Blake? I do. And then do you see on page 31949, you send 2 draft notes to Miss Slate and Miss Lively? I do. You send them to Miss Sachs' draft notes to, yes, crosstalk, to Miss Slate and Miss Lively. I send them to Miss Sachs, yes. Okay, and in that note to Miss Slate that you're asking Miss Sachs to send, you say, as read, I recognize the last few days of filming has been difficult, but I wanted you to know that the work is really great and I'm excited for what you were creating. Were you being straightforward and truthful when you said that the last few days of filming have been difficult? Yes. I said, as read, first off, thank you for putting your all into the film. And then I said, as read, I recognize the last few days of filming have been difficult. So that was, they were difficult. So I was being truthful, of course. Those few days had been challenging on the set. Every day on a movie set is honestly challenging. But those few days, there was a lot of big challenges those few days, production-wise. Then you say, as read, equally important is I was made aware of your concerns. I wanted you to know that they are fully received. I hear you, and adjustments will be made accordingly. And your reference there to your concerns, are those the concerns that you had just listed out to me, that you had been relayed from Miss Sachs and Miss Giannetti? Correct. The ones involving myself, yes. Are there any other concerns that as you sit here today you can think of that you could have been referring to other than the ones you just testified about? Specifically, I was answering your question as it related to Jenny Slate. So if you're talking about concerns in general, what I'm talking about is your reference to your concerns. And all I'm trying to understand, sir, is if other than what you just testified to, there's anything else you can think about that you were referring to when you wrote your concerns. Shapira, objection. Justin, I would go back to a previous question and then I would include a concern that wasn't, I don't think, mentioned to me from Alex. But if you're asking me if I was inferring anything, there was an instance that happened with Miss Lively on set as well, where I also used the word sexy in relation to wardrobe that Miss Slate was there for. So I would lump that into the overall concerns. Gottlieb, and you knew that Miss Slate was concerned about that comment as well to Miss Lively. Miss Slate and I had a conversation with Miss Lively about that comment. Okay, and Miss Slate told you she did not appreciate or feel comfortable with that comment. I don't believe those were the words she used. What were the words she used? I believe I don't have the exact words, but it had to do with, in general, it's like we are the collective. We are staying away from using those words to describe, women's bodies. It was like Miss Slate is a very funny woman, kind of a disarming, joking kind of way. But it wasn't your words. So do you think that was Miss Slate's female gaze? Shapiro, objection. Justin, do I think her words? Gottlieb, objection to describing her wardrobe as sexy would constitute her female gaze on that particular situation. Shapiro, objection. Justin, yes. Gottlieb, did you have a different gaze from your male perspective? I don't know if that's possible that I can have a different gaze as a male, so I'm sorry, I don't know what you're asking. So Miss Slate, not you, would know from the female gaze the impact of having somebody say that you look sexy in a piece of clothing. Shapiro, objection. Justin, that's not what I said to Miss Lively, but absolutely Miss Slate would have a female gaze and I would not. Gottlieb, would Miss Lively have one? As I said earlier, so long as Miss Lively identifies as a female, she would have a female gaze. Do you see, were any of the concerns that were reported to you by Miss Slate provided to anyone in HR at Wayfair Studios? To my knowledge, no. You did not report any of the concerns that Miss Slate had raised with you to anyone in the HR department at Wayfair Studios? I did not. Do you see that you've also written a note to Miss Lively here? I have. And you essentially use similar language here with respect to Miss Lively's concerns. Is that right? Yes. You say, as read, I want you to know that I've been made aware of your concerns and I hear they are fully received and adjustments will be made imminently. Do you see that? Yes. And you say, as read, the dailies are looking wonderful. And while the last 2 days were tough, I assure you that your work was fantastic. Do you see that? Yes. And you say, as read, I truly believe you're creating one of the most honest performances that will have a long-lasting and powerful impact. Do you see that also? I do. Were you being dishonest when you wrote this to Miss Lively? No. You believed all of that? Yes. You did not believe as of May 30th, 2023 that Miss Lively's concerns had been fabricated? Shapiro, objection. Justin, the concerns, well, I don't think we've talked about her concerns yet, but Gottlieb, the concerns to which you are responding here when you say, as read, I've been made aware of your concerns and I hear you, they are fully received and adjustments will be made imminently. With respect to those concerns that you're saying that you've been made aware of and they are fully received and adjustments will be made imminently, those concerns were not fabricated, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, no. Gottlieb, you believe Miss Lively communicated those concerns to you let me strike that. You believe that Miss Lively communicated those concerns in good faith. Shapiro, objection. Justin, I believe that the primary concern also being COVID, the reason that I was told she called Ange Giannetti is a very valid concern. I was made aware of that she also didn't appreciate the use of the word sexy, but also that I apologized in the moment, and in her own words, we were good because we had actually discussed this in person afterwards. The majority of the concerns that I took seriously had to do with the way the set was being run. She was very adamant when she spoke to Sony about the firing of the first AD. She wanted a change. So it was my understanding that the majority of the phone call with Miss Giannetti had to do with COVID and the firing of the first AD. And those were the concerns that I recall being aware of, which I do not believe were fabricated, and she had every right to feel the way that she did. Gottlieb, including her concern with respect to your use of the word sexy, she had every right to feel that way about that word, but that was something that we worked through immediately on the spot. And I appreciate that, but to underscore the point, it's your testimony as you sit here today that Miss Lively's concern with respect to your use of the word sexy, that wasn't something she made up to take control of the film, right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I do not believe she made up the instance where I used the word sexy to describe specifically her wardrobe. No, I don't. Gottlieb, and Miss Slate's concerns were not made up so that Miss Lively could take control of the film, right? No, I also can't speak to what Miss Lively's intentions were at that time. I want to show you, did you ever talk to Miss Slate after sending this message? Did you ever talk to her about the situation or her concerns directly? I didn't feel it was appropriate to put her in that situation. So from that point on, I gave her high fives and complimented her on her work and didn't hug her and never used the word sexy again. Gottlieb, I want to show you a document. I will mark it as Exhibit 27. And Exhibit 27 is a document bearing the Bates numbers JS224 through 225, which is a text message dated May 27th between Jenny Slate and Josh Pearl. Take a minute to read that. Exhibit 27 marked for identification. Gottlieb, and Mr. Baldoni, I appreciate that looking at some of this may be difficult. Who is Josh Pearl, first of all? I don't know. The text that we were looking at in the prior exhibit, which is Exhibit 26, and the messages that you had sent to Miss Slate and Miss Lively was from May 30th. This is an exchange on May 27th. Is that right? It appears to be. And you were aware by May 27th that Miss Slate felt, she says, as read, I'm not scared or anything, just repulsed and deeply irritated. Were you aware that's how she felt as of May 27th? No. Were you aware that, I'm sorry, I would like to correct that for the record. I don't know the date that Alex said anything to me or that I talked to Ange. So if in fact it was the 26th, I don't want to speak incorrectly. So I don't know what I felt or what I knew or didn't know on the 27th. It very well could have been. You might have known that she was deeply irritated by them? No, I don't know what day Alex and her had lunch, so I'm just talking about the date, that's all. You characterized before how the sexy comment was described to you, is that right? Shapiro, objection. Gottlieb, your understanding of Miss Slate's understanding of the sexy comment as told to you by Miss Sachs and Giannetti, is that fair? Yes. Shapiro, objection. Gottlieb, okay, do you see at 1024 Miss Slate characterizing that comment in her own words? Yes. And do you see there she says, as read, at that point he had made the comment to me about looking sexy, but I had decided just to try to push past it even though it made me feel so unsettled and deeply, deeply disappointed and irritated. I do. Did you know that's how Miss Slate felt? I didn't. How does it make you feel now knowing that's how Miss Slate felt in that moment? Shapiro, objection. Justin, sad. Gottlieb, you talked before about your desire to tell the story through the female gaze, is that correct? It was a desire, yes. Why did you choose a male director? Well, for some time I was actually looking for a female director. I went back and forth from the very beginning, or if I should direct or not. Originally, I had optioned the book to direct it, and that was the original plan. And that was back in 2019 or so. And culturally, the conversation changed very fast. And so I thought maybe I shouldn't direct it. So there was a period of time where I wasn't going to direct it. And then in the developing of it with Christy Hall and in speaking to many of the women in my life and women who do specific work as it relates to gender, I sought advice. I started feeling like I was seeing the movie and what was possible. And I thought if I could surround myself with the right team, that there was actually something that I could do justice to, because it wasn't solely a female story. There also were elements that I believe could be really helpful to men. So ultimately, because I had the rights to the film, and it was ultimately my decision, and in consultation with friends and my wife and team, ultimately I believed in myself enough to take on the role. You thought you would be the best person to direct this film? At that time, I did. Did Colleen Hoover ever tell you that she wanted the director of It Ends With Us to be a female? My recollection was from the very beginning was that Colleen Hoover knew I was going to be directing this film. That was why she gave me the rights. So my question is, at any point in time, did Colleen Hoover ever tell you that she wanted the director of the film to be female? I don't remember a conversation like that. It may have happened, but I feel like I would remember. Okay, do you recall ever having a conversation with anyone where they told you maybe the director of this movie should be a female? I think during the time that I was just discussing where there was big shifts culturally, yes, which is why we were looking for a female director for quite some time. Okay, but ultimately you decided you were better positioned to tell the story. Shapiro, objection. Justin, I wouldn't characterize it that way at all. Gottlieb, do you recall ever saying to Brandon Sklenar on the film set something to the effect of, I have to tell you something, but I don't want to get canceled or lose my job? You can't say anything on the set anymore? I have heard that in someone else's testimony, and that is not something I said. That's also not the way I speak. Whose testimony did you hear that in? I believe Jenny Slate's. Did you come to ever feel like you couldn't be open or candid or unfiltered on your set? Yes, but not for any reason that is inferred in that text, nor would I ever say anything to Brandon Sklenar like that. So if somebody said they heard you say that, your under oath testimony would be they are mistaken. My under oath testimony is that I don't believe I ever said anything to that effect to Brandon Sklenar. Did you say to Miss Slate when you said the sexy comment that you could say that because your wife was there? Shapiro, objection. Justin, my recollection of the sexy comment was that it was all kind of said in one sentence. Gottlieb, and what was the one sentence? Miss Slate walked in. As a director, I was doing whatever I was doing, getting the set ready. I looked over to her. She was wearing, I believe, black leather pants, which were designed to, I'm sure, look sexy. And without thinking, I said something to that effect of, oh, wow, those pants look sexy on you. In my memory, if it serves me correctly, my wife was in the room nearby, and I think in my head, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And I say that as a married man with my wife in the other room, because I did not want it to come off in any way like it apparently did. So I was just, in that moment, it was just an instance where I said something that I was like, I probably shouldn't have said that, and just tried to not make it super awkward and made a bad joke at the end of it. What you just described to me, I probably shouldn't have said that. My wife's in the other room. Is that something you said out loud, or is that in your head, what you were thinking? Well, it was like an internal dialogue, it just came out. It was an instance where I said something without thinking. Okay, have you ever discussed, in the context of the events of this film and what happened on set, have you ever discussed trying to describe them as a component of neurodivergence? Shapiro, objection. Justin, that being an instance? Yes. Gottlieb, and what is it about that instance that you believe is, well, first of all, how are you neurodivergent? I've been diagnosed with ADHD combined. Do you take medications for that? I do. Are any of those medications stimulants? I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but it might be yes. Is that a daily medication? Yes. Were you on that medication at the time of production of It Ends With Us? I was not. Okay, is that why you suggested to your publicist at one point trying to go on a podcast or a show of some kind and have a discussion about how what you had been accused of was because of your neurodivergence? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I was never going to go on a show to talk about what I have been accused of. I remember specifically one being very interested in general to go on a certain show. I believe his name is Dr. Amen, who literally saved the life of one of my best friends. And the things that at that time I knew I was being, I don't think accused of is the right word, but I knew that I had these instances that had made, as an example, Miss Slate feel uncomfortable, or at that time, Miss Lively, had to do with a few instances where I made the mistake of saying something where I didn't think fully. Gottlieb, is that something you describe of as impulsive speech? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I think it could be characterized as that, although I'm not a therapist. Gottlieb, would it surprise you to learn that in talking with some people from your publicist team, you described going on the show of that doctor in order to discuss some of the things you had been, quote, accused of? Shapiro, objection. Justin, that would surprise me because that was not something that I specifically ever said. I never said I wanted to go on a show to discuss things I'd been accused of. Gottlieb, you never said most of what I've been accused of could be explained by your neurodivergence? Objection. Justin, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but what you just said is not what you had asked me previously. Gottlieb, well, I'm just focused on the words accused of, and you seem to be saying that you've never described what happened on the set of It Ends With Us in those terms. I'm trying to understand if that's what your testimony is. Shapiro, objection. Justin, no, my testimony is specific to your question, which was, did I ever try to go on a show to specifically discuss the things that I was accused of on the set of It Ends With Us? Gottlieb, okay. So to answer your question, no. And I do believe that the other answer to your question is that impulsive speech could absolutely be and is oftentimes the reason for someone like myself saying something that I didn't fully think through. Are we done with these? Gottlieb, I think so. What about the script? Your call. All right, I'll save it. Mr. Baldoni, you've been handed what's been marked as Exhibit 28. Exhibit 28 is a document bearing the Bates numbers Jones Works 13502 through 13503. It's a text exchange on June 24, 2024 between yourself, Miss Abel, and Matthew Mitchell. Please take a look. Once you're done, I will ask you some questions. Exhibit 28 marked for identification. Justin, okay. Gottlieb, you've read the document marked as Exhibit 28. I have. This is a text exchange between you and Miss Abel and Mr. Mitchell on June 24th, 2024. Correct. This is before the premiere. Yes. This is before any of the social media controversy about the premiere and the events surrounding the premiere had surfaced. Is that right? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm unsure. Gottlieb, and you write at 12:52 p.m. on the 24th to this group that you were thinking about the Dr. Amen. Is it amen or amen? I think it's, I don't know, amen. We'll use amen. You want to do the Dr. Amen show, you say. As read, with everything going on, I want to have an offensive move showing my neurodivergence and some of the attributes that come with it so that I can start talking about it. Most anything that I've been accused of is social awkwardness and impulsive speech, and I think me sitting down with him and just looking at my brain and talking about some of these things will be helpful for me. Do you see that? I do. You wrote that? I did. What had you been accused of as of June 24, 2024? So what I put in quotes there is because I haven't been accused of. That's why I put it in quotes. So there was nothing I'd been officially accused of, hence the need for quotation. I believe by this point I was made aware of the unfollowing, and something that I had been working on over the last year and a half in therapy was my neurodivergence and a lifetime of being undiagnosed and the suffering that comes along with that. And so what I'm suggesting here is, first of all, the Dr. Amen show had reached out to me independently, and I had been wanting to do it because it's very expensive to get the brain scan done, and they were offering it for free, number one. In some way, I think I was justifying why to do it with my team. And I also thought it would be really helpful, as I've done with everything else in my life, to use my own experiences and shortcomings, or in this case, neurodivergence, to help other people feel seen. So yeah, it would have been helpful for me to sit down and have him scan my brain and tell me specifically what is going on. Your testimony is that when you wrote this at 12:52 p.m. on June 24th, that when you said most anything I have been accused of is social awkwardness and impulsive speech, you were referring to a null set? Objection. I'm sorry? Well, you said in response to my question that the reason you put accused of in quotes is because there had been nothing you had been accused of, hence the need for quotation. And then you said, I believe by this point I was made aware of the unfollowing. So is it maybe I'm misunderstanding your testimony, crosstalk? What does null set mean? I don't understand what that means. Maybe I'm misunderstanding your testimony. Is your testimony that you had not been officially accused of anything as of this point? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I hadn't been accused of anything. There had been, if you will, allusions to things, but there had not been like an accusation of sorts. Gottlieb, is what you were saying to your team here that the thing you wanted to get ahead of were insinuations about your conduct? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I think that I wanted to make it very public because I had spent the last decade using the things I was struggling with to help people. I wanted to also show that I had been diagnosed as neurodivergent, and like so many people, I struggle with it. And I thought it could be really helpful to myself, but also to others. Gottlieb, you know what it means to get ahead of a problem or get ahead of an issue, right? Yes. You had concerns as of this point by late June that something might come out publicly about what had happened on the set of It Ends With Us, correct? Shapiro, objection. Justin, by this point in late June, Miss Lively had acknowledged that everything on round 2 had gone perfect. We had gone through the edit. By this point, I had had my film taken from me. I was excluded from finishing my own movie, not being able to sound mix, color, even approve the final picture. The cast had begun following me, and I was also told that I was not going to be sure if I was going to be attending the premiere. I did not know what was possible because nobody was saying anything. It was all whisperings, and I was preparing for absolutely anything. Gottlieb, by this point in late June of 2024, did you understand that it had been insinuated that you had sexually harassed Miss Lively, or that you had engaged in sexual harassment on the set of It Ends With Us? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I had never thought of the word sexual harassment. there had been insinuation of various things, but done in a way that didn't actually say anything. Gottlieb, not insinuations of sexual harassment. Is that what you're saying? Shapiro, objection. Justin, the word sexual harassment or anything around sexual harassment, first time I ever saw that was in the New York Times and when you emailed me. Gottlieb, okay, I want to be very clear. The word sexual harassment never occurred to you in respect to what Miss Lively had described happened on the set until you received her complaint. Is that your testimony? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I can't say it never occurred to me. It was very clear that Miss Lively was insinuating things that came to a return to work document. But to answer your question, I can't say if I ever thought she was insinuating the word sexual harassment or not. I don't know. Gottlieb, do you ever recall communicating to anyone that you thought sexual harassment was being insinuated or suggested about you or your conduct? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm not sure, but I know that I certainly didn't agree with or the insinuations. Gottlieb, if you had thought the sexual harassment was being insinuated, suggested, would you have wanted some kind of investigation to be done or to exonerate yourself? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm not sure. Gottlieb, I'm going to mark a document. Before I do, Mr. Baldoni, I see you have a drink in front of you. Yes. That's a drink called Update, right? Yes. Are you a sponsor or a promoter of Update? A sponsor? Yeah. What do you mean by a sponsor? Have you ever done promotions for that drink that is sitting in front of you here today? I'm an investor in it. You're an investor? Yeah. Have you ever done social media posts or any kind of product endorsements for that drink? I may have done a story, probably at some point. Did you ever do a story or promotion about that drink during the marketing of the film It Ends With Us? Actually, I think I had given one to my publicist Jen, and she was wired, and she liked it. So I did a story of her drinking it. I did. Yes. She was wired? She was like enjoying it. She was like enjoying the drink. It's a stimulant, right? It's a non-caffeinated stimulant. Are you aware of how relentlessly Miss Lively has been savaged for promoting her hair care products during the marketing of It Ends With Us? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm aware that's part of, I don't know if I would ever use the word savaged, but I'm assuming you mean like had negative press. Gottlieb, have you ever commented on Miss Lively's marketing of her products during the time that It Ends With Us was being promoted and marketed? Publicly? Publicly or privately? I'm sure I did privately. Have you ever said it was tone deaf? I don't know if I said those words, meaning they came from me, or if I was repeating that, that's what I had heard. But I'm sure I feel like that's what it was, yes. Do you know if your team had ever criticized Miss Lively for the marketing of her hair care products during the launch of It Ends With Us? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I think they have. Gottlieb, you thought, in fact, that Miss Lively deserved to be criticized for promoting her hair care products around the same time that It Ends With Us was released, didn't you? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I don't think that's a fair characterization of what I thought. Gottlieb, you were happy this Miss Lively was attacked for promoting her products during the launch of It Ends With Us, were you not? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I don't think that's a fair characterization of what's Gottlieb. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 29. Exhibit 29 marked for identification. Gottlieb. Exhibit 29 is a document bearing the Bates numbers Toskovic 089 through Toskovic 103. This is a text exchange between yourself, Mr. Heath, Miss Toskovic, Miss Abel, and others on August 5th. Do you see on the first page there you have sent through a picture of an Update drink? I have. That's the same drink you've got in front of you now, right? Different flavor? It's a different flavor. Same drink, different flavor? Yes. And then you, in this social media team that you're texting with on this chain, I believe it was at that time, you and the social media team talk about a social media post, which I think it looks like an Instagram story. Is that right? That's correct. And the comment on one of those appears on page 091 is as read. It ends with movie press tour day 1. Gotta fuel up with drink update. Do you see that? I do. It says as read, keeps me energized without the caffeine. Do you see that? Oh, yes. On the second page, I do. So you were promoting August 5th was the first day of the press junket. Is that right? I don't know the first day of the press junket. That's the same day you gave an interview with LUK magazine in which you used the word friction. I probably did 20, 30, 40 interviews that day. I don't know, but I imagine it was the same day. Okay, do you see on page 93, if you flip further in, there's a picture of you. I'm just going to continue to read if you don't mind. Gottlieb, I do not mind. Interference of audio from Zoom attendee. What is that? Can you mute? Can you mute everyone? Videographer, Miss Strasberg? Gottlieb, you can turn back to page 93 at the bottom. Do you see a picture of yourself there? I do. I think I recognize that hotel. It's a hotel in New York City you're standing in. Yes. I like that hotel. Me too. You've got a very good looking outfit on, and in the caption, there are different brands that are tagged there. Is that right? Styling and grooming. Oh, sorry. Yes. Do you see the different brands that are being for top, pants, shoes, watch, and necklace? Yes. And those are meant to be tagged in a social media post? Yes. To let people know what you're wearing, right? Yes. That's pretty standard during the promotion. Well, that's fairly standard when you're wearing clothes, movie star promoting a film, to let people know what brands you're wearing. This was fairly new to me, but I believe it's standard for movie stars. Did you ever get any backlash that you can recall from being insensitive or tone deaf for promoting a drink in which you were an investor, or clothing that you were wearing in connection with your promotion of the film It Ends With Us? Shapiro, objection. Justin, to my knowledge, I don't know if there is a direct link between the molecule paraxanthine, I don't know how to say that word, and comes from caffeine and domestic violence, so I don't believe there was any backlash for me posting one Instagram story about this drink. Gottlieb, I will move to strike that as non-responsive. My question was, did you ever get any backlash that you can recall for being insensitive or tone deaf for promoting a drink in which you were an investor, or clothing that you were wearing in connection with your promotion of the film It Ends With Us, yes or no? Shapiro, objection. Justin, I'm not going to answer the question the way it was framed. Gottlieb, you have to. It's my deposition. Shapiro, objection. Mr. Heath just answered it however best you can. Gottlieb, he's Mr. Baldoni. Shapiro, sorry. Bach, he should answer it too. Justin, who am I? Can you ask it again? Gottlieb, it's a yes or no question. Do you recall ever receiving any social media backlash for your promotion of the drink on August 5th, 2024? Justin, I don't recall any backlash to me posting about update. Do you recall any backlash for you tagging Tag Heuer, Manolo, another brand, David Yurman, in connection with this picture that was posted on August 5, 2024? I don't recall any backlash specific to my outfit or the text, no. Okay, can you ever recall anyone telling you that they thought doing this, nodding to products in connection with a very serious movie, it was insensitive or tone deaf? Shapiro, objection. Justin, no. Gottlieb, is that gendered? Shapiro, objection. Justin, may I answer the question? Gottlieb, it's the reason I asked it. Shapiro, objection to the commentary. Justin, I don't believe it's gendered. Gottlieb, all right, I think we've been going for a while. Why don't we go off record? Videographer, we're going off the record. The time is 2:58 p.m. Recess. Videographer, we're back on the record. The time is 3:25 p.m. All right, see you in part 5.